Welcome everybody. I think we'll get started with the demonstration. It's now about 2 minutes past 7. So hello, my name is Adrian Wild. I'm the MD of HBXL, and this evening we're going to be having a look at EstimatorXpress 2015, which has been brought out in the last few days. So here's the new look EstimatorXpress. As you can see, it's reflecting the new office style with a different menu and so on that we're going to be running through for those of you who are joining us to catch hold of some of the new features that we've introduced with this new version. Today we're going to be looking at EstimatorXpress on its own as opposed to our visual estimating system, which allows you to draw in 2D and then to export the information into EstimatorXpress to generate automatic estimates. We've got regular demonstrations of visual estimating, so if you're interested in that after this dem, please give us a shout and we'll be happy to take you through it. Just a little bit about the company before we jump in. We're a construction software company founded in 2000. We're a family-based business. There's around about 25 or maybe 26 people working with us now, and we've got about 12,000 customers across the UK who bought the software. We have a range of software including EstimatorXpress and PlansXpress and Health and Safety Expert, which all linked together. This means that once you've done your estimate, the software will also prepare your health and safety documentation and also develop you a contract. In addition to these software packages, we also have links to accounting software. So today we're going to be looking at how the software can automatically generate detailed costs of your job, right the way down from high level views, phase by phase of the building work, drilling down into it so that you can see all the materials and labor and plant by product type. And then finally, as you drill deeper and deeper into the estimate, you'll find that it's actually scheduling every component that you need to construct the estimate, right down to the dummy frames, insulation, external lintels, skirting boards, you name it, the software automatically works it out for you. And we're going to be showing you how it does that in quite a lot of detail this evening. The software will also generate a Gantt chart, or there's an embedded Gantt chart system built into it that allows you to easily plan the job in just a few minutes, and then using the data from the estimate and the Gantt chart, it will then produce things like material schedules, just-in-time material schedules, cash flow projections, and a whole host of other reports for you. The software will also generate customer-pleasing and job-winning quotes. All this information just cascades off the back of your estimate almost with a single click of the mouse. And we've seen over and over again that the software will win customers more and more work. In fact, at a survey that we did a couple of years ago, customers were telling us that it actually had improved their success rate by an amazing 230%, which astonished us that it was having such an impact. So before I actually jump straight into the software, I just wanted to give you a bit of a high-level view of how it works, and then once I repeat this for you, hopefully more of it will stick so that when you actually purchase the software, you'll hit the ground running with the software. So as I was saying earlier, this is the new look menu. It works in a slightly different way, as we're going to be seeing, but it has the essential features of the existing software, just a slightly different presentation. When you first purchase the software, or after you've had a bit of a play with it, one of the key things to do is to go into the My Settings part of the software. And that allows you to configure the software to work in the way that you want to work. I'm going to look at one or two of the buttons on the software to show you this feature. So let's have a look at the price book. Now the price book is unique to HBXL in that it allows you to download live pricing from many of the major merchants in the UK. We have relationships with Jewson's, Travis, Graham's, Keyline, TradePoint, with all the Screwfix brands, Builder Warehouse, which is a negotiated set of products, And as we'll be seeing today, we've also joined forces with a PVC-U company called Crystal Direct, who supply us with over 5,000 doors and windows into the software. So this is a very important part of the estimating process, as you can imagine. Once you've downloaded the prices, which incidentally will come down into the software with your discounts, you then need to spend a few minutes setting the hourly rates for your labor. In this way, the software exactly reflects your cost structure. It's not some generalized regional pricing. It's the actual price that you're paying your guys to do the individual tasks. You also do the same thing for your plant. How much you're paying for a skip, how much you're paying for a mini digger, and so on. We're going to have a look at all of these in a lot of detail in a few minutes. The next layer in the system, which is again a unique feature of EstimatorXpress, is the specifications tool. Now, what the specification system allows you to do is to precisely define what labor, plant, and materials are used in your estimates. For example, you may want to use as standard a particular block. You might like Celcon, you might like Thermalite. You can actually tell the software which product you want to use. You can also define useful things such as insulation and your plastering system that you want. So again, the software is precisely working in the way that you want to work, or in the way that the drawings are specified. When we ship the software, we ship it with a number of preset specifications. These aim to comply with building regulations so that you can start estimating out of the box without having to configure the software at all. But as we said, you can tweak the estimate and the specification to reflect your world precisely. This is a screenshot of a cavity wall specification within an extension, and I've highlighted a couple of lines here to demonstrate the principles. Before we do that though, if you look down the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there are around 80 items that define how a cavity wall is constructed. So this is all the detail that is automatically being generated by the software. Against each item is an actual product or a labor resource or a piece of plant used to carry out that particular item. So for argument's sake, if we look at the bricks above DPC, you can see that these are set at the moment at 75p, and of course you can change that when you're creating your estimate. They're part of the Brickwork Shell, which attaches that data to the Gantt chart, and there are 60 of those to the square meter. So 60 times 75p is £45 a square meter. So all the materials are configured in this way. There's a live price drawn down from the merchants, or if we look at the labor side of the life, you can see that we've got the bricks being laid above DPC. We've allocated those to a 2-and-1 gang. In the software, we've set their hourly rate at £65 an hour, and we estimate that it takes them about 0.6 of an hour to lay a square meter of bricks. Now, both of those figures are entirely within your control. If you think your brickies work faster, you can reduce that timeline. If you pay them more, you can increase that as well. So £65 times 0.6 in this case is £39 a square meter. So I hope you're starting to be able to see that the software works exactly in the way that you want to, not some generalized methodology. So just to recap that, you download your prices from Jewson with your own discounts embedded. They sit in your library price book, and a specification is a subset of those materials drawn from the price book. What bricks and blocks, what labor resources are you using? Within the software, you then decide what items you want to estimate, for argument's sake a brick wall, and you enter in the various dimensions of the wall, the length, the height, the foundation details and so on, which we're going to see later on, and it merges all that information with the live pricing and your specification to generate numerous reports and the detailed quote for your customers. The quote can contain as much or as little information as you want, and I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. As I mentioned, we're also in league now with Crystal Direct, who provide us with pricing for around 5,000 doors and windows. I've just strayed into the health and safety screen in error, but just suffice it to say that the software automatically generates all your health and safety documentation. If you wish, we can have a look at that later on. Okay, so let's have a look at the estimate that we're going to do today. So I've opened up Plans Express, which is our CAD software, to show you the little job that we're going to be doing today, which hopefully will demonstrate the basic principles. So this, as I say, this is a Plans Express job, which has been drawn in 2D, which automatically generates a three-dimensional model, which I'm now just moving around so you can get an idea of what the software will do. A drawing like this, once you've got your head around the software, will take you an hour or two, and then you can fire it directly into EstimatorXpress to generate the estimate. We're not going to be doing that today. We're going to be doing it, if you like, longhand using EstimatorXpress. So we're actually going to have a look at this side extension. It's 3.6 wide with a 4.5 gable. It's got a window in the front and a patio door situated at the back of the software, at the back of the extension, with an apex roof 45 degrees. So we're going to have a look at how you actually do that in Estimator. So clicking onto EstimatorXpress, I'm going to go back to the main menu, which we've just seen a screenshot of earlier. And I'm going to quickly dip into My Settings again so you can understand in detail how the software works. So if I dip into the My Price Books first of all, incidentally, you can run multiple price books so that if you're working in an area, say you're working in the fringes of London, and occasionally you go into central London, you may want to have a separate set of prices. And the software allows you to run those two price books so that you can price with different pricing for labor and plant. I'm going to run with the master price book this evening. So I'm going to open that, and as you can see, it's divided into various sections. We'll start by having a look at the labor. So here we are in the price book relating to the labor. Down the left-hand side, you can see all the labor resources that exist: brickies, chippies, ground workers, and so on. Now, as an exercise, I'm going to adjust one of these so that we can see the information flowing through the job. You can edit the resources either line by clicking the Edit Resource and changing that rate. I'm going to change that to £65 an hour. Click OK, and obviously it's changed on the screen. I can also do this by mass editing the prices and simply work my way down them. So clearly you need to have a good idea of how much you're paying your guys, but just spend a few minutes doing that, and the software will then reflect your price structure. I'm not going to work all the way through this because it'll take 5 or 10 minutes to do. Plant works in exactly the same way, so I'll jump into the plant section. This time we've got a few more items to adjust, but of course it's very important that they reflect your rates. So if, for argument's sake, I was to find the skip, I can do this by searching through the information using the filter tools, spoil removal. I can find my skip, a 7 cubic meter skip, and I can change that to reflect the rate I'm paying. That seems to vary quite a lot as I go around the country, anywhere between about 185 up to as high as £250. So I'm going to go in the middle there and call that £220. So again, you can see how important it is that you spend a few minutes getting these rates right, because they can have a big impact on the overall cost. So again, you'll need to spend 10 or 15 minutes running through the software to make sure you're entirely happy with the prices. We'll now have a look at the materials section. Okay, down the left-hand side, you can see that we've got all the prices. As you cast your eye across, you'll notice in about the 5th or 6th column, you've got all the different suppliers that are contributing to the prices. All these prices have come down from the web with a single mouse click. The software is intelligent. It allows you to click on the download button. It looks at the overall catalogue of products, and there's something of the order of 550,000 products online. It sees which ones have changed, and it only sends the ones that have changed and affect your pricing. As you can see here, there's a column for discounts. If you've got a discount structure in your with the particular merchant, that information will automatically appear. You'll also notice we've got a column here for wastage. The software automatically makes an allowance for wastage if you wish, and you can set that value at any value that you like. Incidentally, if you want, you can easily add your own products. If you're buying a particular product from a local supplier, say you've got a local staircase manufacturer or a local joinery company, you can add those prices in here line by line, and the software will then use them. Obviously, you've got to maintain those prices as time goes by. So that's the price book structure. The next thing that we talked about earlier is the specification. So let's have another look at that to refresh you on how that works. So if I look at the new build spec for argument's sake, as we saw earlier, in the cavity wall spec for argument's sake, you've got down the left-hand side, you've got all of the elements that go to make up a wall. As I scroll further down, you'll then see that we've got something like a stone-faced wall. Now this is a much shorter list because it actually inherits all the items from the cavity brick wall. Things like the plastering system, the blocks and so on, they'll all be the same default settings. So once you've set up one type of wall, it's much more straightforward to set up the other walls. And again, as I say, all of these specifications come pre-configured, set up so that you can estimate out of the box once you've refreshed your prices. Again, as we were saying, there are a number of specs set up by default. Profit and inflation. The software always works at the net price. It takes off discount and so on, so that you can actually see how much it's physically costing you to build the job. You then add your markup on top of that to work out the price you're going to quote your client. I would suggest as a rule that you don't make this any lower than about 30%, bearing in mind that probably 15% or so of your costs will disappear, of your overall turnover will disappear in terms of overhead. This will pay for things like your non-productive time or your site manager, your accountancy, maybe you've got a head office cost, maybe you've got somebody who helps you with your books and general office administration, your vans, all of those sort of things which will gobble up your profit. You need to take that into account with your markup. The software also allows you to take account of inflation. It's very likely that you won't be starting this job for several months, and it may take you 3, 4, 5, 6 months to build, so that by the end of the project 12 months may have elapsed. And if you don't build in an allowance for inflation, again your profit will evaporate. So it's a very important thing to consider when you quote for your job. The workbooks, these are the detailed calculators that actually do the donkey work for you. Now there are over 400 workbooks for walls, roofs, doors, radiators, plumbing and heating systems, boilers. There's a calculator which works out all the costs, including the labor and plant for that particular element. And we're going to be exploring a handful of those today to show you how they work. Grouping of workbooks allows you to build a checklist of items. It's perhaps worth having a quick look in that. So this is a list of the group of workbooks. If I scroll across, you'll see that we've got what are essentially checklists for the different types of jobs: houses, apartments, lean-to extensions, apex extensions, garages, and so on. And if we look at a garage for argument's sake, you can see that in here there is a checklist of the different items that you may encounter when you're building a garage. It's just really a start of a 10 to get you going. You can add other items to it if your garage has got some unusual items in it. You can also build your own checklist. So if you find yourself regularly doing lean-to extensions and you want 1 or 2 extra things in there, or you want to leave some items out, you can build that very easily. You simply copy that column, edit it, and it's ready for you to pick as you're going along. Bar charts, let's have a quick look at those. If I have a look at a small extension, what this allows you to do is to set up a typical Gantt chart or a bar chart which describes how long it will take for you to build a particular job. So down the left hand side of the screen here you can see that all the different phases and across the bottom are the weeks and months, and each of the bars represents a different element within the job. So if we look here at Brickwork Shell, for argument's sake, for a small extension, the default setting is a couple of weeks. You can edit that if you like. You may say, well, for most of the extensions that we do, our default is about a week. You don't have to be accurate to the nearest day, because obviously in the real world, problems are going to arise. You're going to need to give yourself a bit of breathing space in between the different trades. Again, the software comes shipped with numerous charts set up with some suggested settings. The reports, we're going to have a look at those in the next few minutes, and they allow you to look at the information the software has produced in a whole host of ways very, very easily and quickly. Okay, so assuming I've opened up my my software and downloaded my prices, you only need to do that each time you start a new job. You don't have to do it all the time. Incidentally, when you create a job, what's actually going on is that you've downloaded the prices, generally speaking, into the library, which sits outside the job. When you create a job, you make a copy of that price book, copy of the specification that you want to use, and a copy of all the workbooks then are loaded into the particular estimate. This means that the prices are actually frozen within that job, so that you can download prices within the library for future jobs, but the actual job that you've got, the price book, is frozen, so it doesn't keep upgrading every time you look at it. There's also handy tutorials and help systems and manuals. They're all available from the main menu. You'll also notice here on this particular software that I've got a number of bonus packs loaded, and those are available depending on the versions of the software that you want to purchase. You can also, from here, quickly see what version you're running, and I'm using the latest version here today. It literally loaded in the last few minutes. Support and updates, it tells you how much time you've got on your support and update subscription. When you buy the software from us, you get the first years of support and updates free. Thereafter, you pay around £12 a month to keep your software up to date with all the latest additions as they're introduced. You can also quickly see what merchant accounts you've got set on this particular system. As you can see, I've got the Jewson merchant on mine, the new crystal windows, HBXL price tracker, which is a default set of pricing, the builder warehouse account, and trade point. So all of those are available on this particular computer I'm using today. Okay, so let's start to do the estimate. So here we are in the job summary screen with all the jobs that I've estimated. So I'm going to create a new one today. Press New Estimate. Incidentally, you'll notice to the right of the New Estimate button is a copy estimate. If you find that you're doing similar jobs all the time, you can just copy a particular estimate and tweak it. You don't necessarily have to start with a brand new job. That makes it even more, you can carry out estimates even more quickly. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to give the job a name. So I'm going to call this Mr. and Mrs. Green. It's just a reference, so I can find them when I'm come back to the job, and it's an extension. If I had the Plans Express tool set, I could just click on this button here and the software would automatically import all the dimensions from the drawing and carry out the estimate for me automatically. But today, as I say, I'm going to do it using the longhand, entering into the software directly. I'm going to choose my master price book that's got my up-to-date brickies price and my revised skip price. I'm going to choose an extension specification. This has a set of rates in it that are more suited to extensions. They obviously take slightly longer to lay a square meter of bricks when you do an extension as opposed to a new house. I'm going to choose the pan tile that I want to use. So I'm going to use a pan tile for an extension or renovation. And I'm going to pick the price of the brick that I want to use. If I want to, I can physically pick a product type. It's just a question of setting up the system to do that. So I'm going to pick a pound facing brick. I want it for an extension, actually. and click Next. The next thing I need to do is to pick my group of workbooks. Now this was this checklist, if you remember, and I've got one set up here for an extension demonstration. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to give a start date for the job, so I'm going to assume that I'm going to be starting this the planning application in August, say August the 10th, and I'm going to choose a small extension bar chart. I then enter the customer's name. I can't remember the name. I think I said Mr. and Mrs. Brown, but bear with me if I've got the wrong name. 13 Avenue Road, Ashby de la Zouche. That was where I actually ran my own building company for about 10 or 15 years. I built over 300 extensions and around 80 houses, and I basically wrote the software to help me run my business. So I know that it's a practical tool set. It's not something that's been designed by a computer programmer who has no idea about building for SMEs. I've been there and got the t-shirt, as it were. I then set my profit margin, and I can remember going to see my bank manager actually, and he said, well, you know, you're doing quite well really, but how much markup do you put on your jobs? And I said, well, I put 25% on. And he said to me, well, that's not enough. He said, really, you should, as a default, put it up for 35%. And I thought, well, I'll never win any more work if I do that. But I took his advice, and much to my surprise, I found that I was winning even more work. So I think it's quite easy for us all to think we have to be the cheapest in the street. That's not necessarily the case. And in fact, many architects have told me over the years that they don't like cheap prices. They like the security of something that's more sensible. So don't be afraid to experiment with putting your prices up. Set your inflation rate at your best guess of what inflation is going to be over the next few months. Press Finish, and the software then configures the software ready for you to actually start estimating. Okay, so if we look down the left-hand side, you can see that we've got a checklist of items for our extension demonstration. I'll just flick back onto the CAD drawing itself, just to remind you of what we're going to be actually estimating. So we've got this side extension, 3.6 by 4.5, apex roof with a 2.4 patio and a 900 window at the front. Normally you'd obviously have the drawing to the side of you or on a separate screen. Okay, so I'm going to start now by doing the brick and block cavity wall. So I simply select the wall, open the workbook. This allows me to put multiple types of walls in there if I want, with different specifications. So I'm going to be doing my extension walls to my family room. Click OK, and the template is created. I'm then invited to pick the type of wall that I want to do. So I'm going to pick a single story cavity wall. Because it's an extension, it doesn't necessarily have to be upgraded to the new build Part L spec. So I'm going to pick that. If I wanted to do Part L, no problem, I can just pick that one. Click Select, and the dimension wizards appear. I can now enter my dimensions in here. So I can put my height of my wall in here, let's say 2.325. I can put the length of my wall in, so I'm going to do my rear wall, and I've got to put my patio door in, which has got an area of some 5 square meters. I've got one of those identical walls. Incidentally, if I want to, I can put what we call tech tips and tech labels on there, and different labels appear to help me understand the information. So if I click in this cell for argument's sake, you'll see that the dimension has changed, and it's just saying to me the wall is measured above the DPC. 9 times out of 10 it's self-evident what the software is asking for, but it's always reassuring to have that information available to you. On this rear wall I haven't got a gable, so I'm just going to click Next. I'm then invited to put in the depth of the foundation below site strip, the width of the foundation, the thickness of the concrete. All of these values can be changed. As my foundation is relatively shallow, I'm going to say no, I don't want to plank construct the excavation. I'm then invited to check the height of the splash course, whether I've got any facings below the brickwork, any block work on the inner and outer leaf. Now these are all set up as standards, but you can adjust those if you so desire. Obviously, I'm going to confirm that the walls are insulated and that there is a separate damp-proof course. Finally, I confirm to the software that yes, I want to plaster the wall, yes, I want to decorate it. The software is going to do everything from first dig to final lick of paint on the skirting. Everything has been taken into account. I then click Finish, and the rear wall has now been estimated. So you can see a price has already appeared there. Now my front wall is almost identical, so I'm going to copy that wall, and all I need to do is to change the width of the window. Now I know I've got a 1.2 deep window by 0.98 by 0.9, so the overall window area is 1.08 square meters. Now bear in mind the software is actually going to allow us to calculate the window in detail on another screen. Don't worry about the actual window itself, that's all going to be taken care of. I'm then going to copy that again as I'm going to do the gable. This time I'm going to use the DIMS wizard, the dimension wizard, confirm the height and the length of the gable, which is 4.5. On this occasion I've got no openings in it. There's one wall like that, but I've got a gable. So I just need to check the various dimensions of the gable. The width of the gable is 4.5. The height of it is around 2 meters. Again, I can confirm the foundations. Now the software has obviously remembered all of the previous values, so the footings and the decoration spec are all the same. So you can now see that we've done those 3 walls in, I don't know, a minute. So what's the software actually done at this stage? If I scroll down the screen, you can see that we've got the length of the wall has been captured and repeated, all of the footing details, the area of the walls, the areas of finishes, skirtings and so on. If I then scroll further down the screen, you can now see that for each wall it's worked out the structural concrete, the cavity fill, the trench blocks, the block work to the inner and outer leaf. There's no coursing blocks because that value was obviously set at 0. The bricks below splash, the splash course bricks, bricks above opening, cavity insulation, insulation taping, brick ties, insulation retaining clips, damp-proof course, sand and cement to the different elements. Each one's listed separately because you may be using a different mortar for the facings. Plaster finish, skirting boards, fixings to the skirtings, decoration, primer, and so on. So everything has been estimated just by putting in those few values. And then as we scroll down further, you can see that all the labour elements have been placed. We've got a mini digger for digging out the foundations and the skip. So all of this information at the moment is in terms of square meters and cubic meters. If we go to another view of the information, you can then see that it's merged the information with the specification and all the areas and volumes that have been calculated. I'm just going to turn on a little marker here, which makes it easy to show it to you. So if again I look at the bricks above DPC, you can see that we selected a £1 facing bricks. They're part of the Brickwork Shell. They're £1 each, 60 to the square metre, so the bricks in total cost £60 a square metre. It's got the wastage factor that we are allowed to set in the price book, and there's 25.623 square metres. The total cost of those is 1,537 plus the wastage, giving us a total budget of 1,652 for the bricks. We need 1,537 bricks plus waste, so nominally we need just over 1,650 bricks. That's been repeated for every item on the walls. If we look at the labour again, bricks above DPC, you can see that the £65 is being utilised for all the different elements that the brickies touch. Now, the benefit of having a cost based on an hourly rate rather than so much per square metre for each element is that just by changing a single value, you can automatically update your costings as the months and years roll by. So, a 2-in-1 gang used for the bricks above DPC, £65 an hour, which was the value we set in the price book, if you remember. It takes them 0.6 of an hour to do a square metre of brickwork. 0.6 times £65 is £39 a square metre. Again, there's 25 square metres of brickwork, which was the same as the bricks above DPC. The total cost is £999, and there's a total allowance of 15.37 hours for them to construct just the brickwork. The other elements are listed either side of it for laying the bricks, the blocks, fixing the insulation, and so on and so forth. Everything's been estimated individually. Okay. Incidentally, we can also view this information in pictorial form using the resource wizard. If I click on the resource wizard, the same information is presented, the volume of concrete and so on. So if I put my mouse over there, you can see that the value appears in the right-hand corner. If I wanted to change my brick, supposing my client says, oh, it's a bit expensive, is there anything you can do about the price? You could say, well, look, we can try and use a cheaper brick, select that, and then choose a more competitive price brick, and this will automatically change the price. So if I change this to, say, a 70p brick, you'll notice that the price at the top of the screen changes from 6128 to a lower value. You can now see the price is set at 5,632. So by changing those bricks, you've saved the client around £500. So rather than giving away your profit margin, you can play with the various elements. We could change the insulation, Mr. Brown. We can change the plastering system and so on and tweak it. Maybe we can change the roof tiles or the pitch of the roof. All of these variables can be changed to change the cost of the job rather than the profitability that you're going to be making. Okay, I'm going to press finish. So hopefully you can see that very quickly by entering a handful of dimensions, the software has done a lot of work for you. Let's return to the job summary. And we'll now have a look at putting a roof on. Now, the particular checklist that I've got hasn't got an apex abutment roof in. So I'm going to go and get those. So I press Add Workbook, choose Roofs, and the software then shows you all the different roofs that are available. Now I want an apex roof, so I'll pick that. Incidentally, on this menu here, the software tells you all the items that the software will estimate. The carcassing timber, the guttering, the fascias, sarking, downpipes, plastering and insulation, internal and external deck, and so on. All of that is actually going to be estimated. So I'm going to select that and bring it into the estimate. So although I've had my abbreviated checklist, I can always add to that as I go along. So let's open up the apex roof. Give it a reference. It's the extension roof, again to the family room. So it's exactly the same process. First thing the software asks me to do is to set the thickness of the walls. Well, I'm going to set those at the same thickness as the overall wall. I'm then going to choose a roof with fascias and barge boards, insulation and a plastering to the ceiling. You can see there are various other options there. So if you're doing a garage roof, you'd probably pick a slightly different spec. I'm then invited to enter the width of the soffits, the thickness of the wall, the span of the roof, which from my drawing I know to be 3.9 meters. Same width for the other side and soffit. The pitch of the roof, 40 degrees. I can change any of these values. The number of purlins, stick a couple of purlins in there. 1 binder, 2 eaves fascias. If I click on the timber and strap details, roof strap details, all these values have been set up by default. You really don't have to bother to come in here. The software is going to schedule all that strapping and so on for you in line with building regs. I can then confirm the spacing of the joist and rafter centers. Again, soffit widths, number of fascias. In fact, on this occasion, I know that I've forgotten to change the wall width here as I'm talking to you. So that's 3.3 meters. I've got no wall on that side. I've got 2 gable rafters up on the first end, none at the second end, 1 lot of barge boards, 2 rainwater pipes, 2 gutters, and the length of the rainwater pipes. Again, I can put tech tips on all of these, so as I click into them, it tells me the what it's actually looking for. So I'm going to put in about 5 meters of guttering for that. It then asks me about the length of the abutment lead. I'd need to measure that off the drawing. I haven't actually got a scale with me, but I'm going to assume that's 6 meters. Sorry, I've got 1 abutment and 6 meters length. Spacing of the tile lath, I'm going to put that at 0.25. There's no sarking board, this roof isn't in Scotland. I'm not insulating the roof. The insulation hangs over the edge of the wall to ensure no leakage of heat. And yes, the ceiling is insulated. I then confirm whether I'm plastering the underside. I'm not. I'm only plastering the flat ceiling. I'm not priming the soffits and so on because by default I know in my spec I've got a plastic fascia. Click Finish, and the software will then schedule all of the materials associated with that roof. So again, it's collected all that information, and I can then have a look at what the software has actually calculated. So you can see here that I've got a complete cutting list of all the materials: joists, nogs, rafters, gable ladders, soffits, wall plates, purlins and binders, the ridge, tile lath and so on, eaves ventilators, soffit fixings, no sarking obviously, as I said I didn't want it, the area of the roof tiles, number of top tiles that are required. As you can see, they're not required because we're using a pan tile. Soffits, sand cement pointing. Incidentally, I could have used a dry ridge system if I'd gone into the option there. Guttering systems, swan necks, insulation, decoration, and then all the labour associated with it. So all again, that's been worked out within 2 or 3 minutes by entering a handful of dimensions. Okay, let's do the extension slab. It's an unreinforced slab. I'm going to work quickly through this because I'm conscious that time is running out. So it's 3.9 standard blinding in hardcore, and the slab on the other direction is 3.3. It's 100 mil thick, the slab. Is there DPM? Is it insulated? Length of perimeter insulation? Well, that's going to be around 4, about 11 meter run. It's not reinforced and it is power floated. And then it asked me about plants. So a couple of hours for an excavator to site strip, plate compactor, wheelbarrow. I don't need a vibrating poker for this little job. Power float and allowance for deliveries and collections. So again, software's worked out and scheduled all our materials, and it's all viewable, fully costed. Again, for cost time reasons, I'm going to flip quickly through this. I now want to put in an a UPVC patio door. So I'm going to go and get one of the new crystal patio doors. So I can sort by door type. And you can see these are all the crystal direct doors and windows. So we've got crystal direct composite doors, bifold doors, double panel doors, French doors, patio doors, single panel doors, and triple panel doors. All of those are available in numerous styles. As I say, overall, in terms of doors and windows, I think there's over 5,000 of them. So I'm going to pick the PVC-U patio doors, and while I'm here, I'm going to pick windows as well. Pick that. Incidentally, you'll also notice that we've got a conservatory. I think there's a library of 80 standard conservatories for sort of instant estimating, budgeting purposes. So I then select those two, and you can see they've then been brought into the estimate, and I can then pick those and add them into the job. So it's patio door to the family room. Now the new wizard appears. So for those of you who already have the software, this is a totally new approach to adding components. You can do that. You can use this in a variety of ways. The way that I've tending to use is to choose the color of the door, and as you can see, there are a whole raft of different colors that you can arrange with the doors and windows. I'm going to use a single sliding patio door, and I'm going to apply that filter, and then I'm going to set the size of the door that I want. It's got a 2390. Now that's actually allowing 10 mil fixing allowance, and you can see that it's pulled up 2 doors. So that UPVC door, £584.32, which I think is a fairly competitive price for a good quality door. So I'm then going to select that door. It then invites me to choose the lintel. So the first thing I need to do is to tell the software what type of wall have I got and the width of the cavity. Apply the filters, and it then suggests a range of lintels that are available. So I'm going to pick the 2.7 lintel, and it then automatically suggests a 90 to 105 mil cavity closure of an appropriate size. Okay, so that now in effect has completely estimated the cost of this door. So I'm just going to accept the defaults, and you can see that all the sizes have been pulled in by the wizard. Again, I can check the detail. Now, how the software works, it works first of all by defining what the cost is of the actual opening. So it's going to plaster the reveals, work out the number of angle beads, work out the number of fixings in the doors, work out the amount of mastic it needs around the door to seal it. Further down the screen, though, we've actually got specific products. So it's not a square meterage pricing. It's an actual physical door that you can purchase from Crystal Direct at this price. So it gives you a very realistic benchmark price for a good quality door. You can then see that we've got the lintel has been pulled in, and it's even allowed for a dummy frame and pulled in the cavity closer. Plus it's made allowances for fitting and forming the opening by the brickies. Okay, so that's that job done. I now just need to add my window. So it's exactly the same process as the patio door. It's my family room window in the family room. Okay, so same process. Choose the type of window that you want to put in there and the color. I'm going with a white again. It's a sliding sash window. I can actually pick the style of window that I want to put on there. I can then filter the size of window that I want. It's around a 900 window, so I can either pick either of those ones. And I'm going to select, sorry, I should have applied the filter first of all. So I can pick an 855 or a 1080. Now in this situation, you can either pick the one that's slightly smaller and use the actual price, or you can pick the 1080 to give you a safe budget. I'm going to go with the 855 wide window, and you can see the prices then have been brought in. So we're around about £260 for the windows. Incidentally, you can see you can also set the U value for the job in hand. And then pick the type of window that you wish to use. So I'm going to go with this 10. I'm going to go with the 1195 one because it was a nominal 1200 high window. Press select. It's automatically suggested a lintel now based on the fact that previously I said it was a 100mm cavity. Select the lintel and the cavity closer is automatically suggested as well. So once again, the software has automatically populated the wizards with all the appropriate dimensions, and I can change any of those if I want. Okay, so that in essence is the estimating process. I could clearly pick things like manholes, drainage runs, all of those sort of things, and estimate them just as quickly. So that a simple extension like this would probably take any 15-20 minutes, depending on how proficient you are with the software and how often you've done it. A bigger one's clearly going to take a bit longer. So what I'm proposing to do now, having done the walls, the doors and windows, the roof and the slab, is to show you the other elements of the software. So let's have a look first of all at the Gantt chart. And as you will recall, when we created the software, we said that we wanted to do a simple extension, and the software has loaded that in. Now, to edit this is very easy. Let's imagine for one moment that we've actually got the drawing so that there's no design phase. I simply choose the phase from the menu and I set that to 0, press Cascade, and the software then automatically configures the rest of the chart. Let's say, however, that I'm not entirely confident I'm going to get planning because it's a front-facing extension, so I'm going to postpone the actual building regs until I've actually got planning. So I can select that and shunt that along the chart, and again press Cascade. I can then look at the individual items, for argument's sake the brickwork. Let's have a look at those. Brickwork Shell. That's nominally set for 2 weeks. I'm going to reduce that to 1 week. I could make it 1 week and a day. I'm just going to go for the week. Press Cascade, and again it programs it. So spend 5 minutes programming this, press refresh, and the whole chart is done for you. Now the key thing about this is that all the bars are actually plumbed into the actual estimate. So all the costing information relating to the brickwork shell is being dragged along behind the bar. So this will also be able to produce things such as just-in-time material schedules and so on. I've had a question here from one of you guys. Will I be able to learn a bit more about the difficult things, e.g. a flat roof extension with a fiberglass roof, parapet walls and box gutter? Now the fiberglass roof is no problem whatsoever. You would be able to select the waterproofing system in the flat roof. Parapet wall, that's clearly a question of making the wall slightly higher around the roof. We've then got some new coping workbooks that would allow you to do a coping. The box gutter, slightly more challenging. You'd need to spend 5 minutes creating a box gutter based on the configuration that you're using. That would take 3 or 4 minutes to do. Once you've done that, you can save it and reuse it over and over again. That's one of the benefits of the estimating tool. It has complete flexibility, particularly if you have the Ultimate Edition, which actually provides you with the estimating engine that drives all of the complex estimators in it. So there's no problem at all with any of those items, Chris. Thanks for the question. Okay, just going to check that there's no other questions come in. Right, so let's go back to the reports tab now. Now we're running slightly late, but I hope you'll bear with me. It's got so many features in it, it's hard to know where to start. So down the left-hand side of here, you can see we've got these little icons. These are graph icons, and for argument's sake, I can show a graph of the cash flow of the money as it flows out of the job. I can show a cost by workbook, for argument's sake. What's the relative cost of the different items? So most of the money is in the roofs and the walls, so that's really where we need to focus our attention. So lots of different graphs there. No time to look at them all this evening. Let's have a look at a basic cost report. So we've got just under 13,000 quid's worth of costs so far for this. If I drag this button down to here, you can then see it starts to drill down into the information. Okay, so we've got £5,600 worth of labour costs. How is that money being expended? I can grab one of these buttons here and the software breaks that down line by line. Okay, 1,800 quid's worth of bricklayers. What are they actually doing for that money? Drag this button down and you can actually see what the physical tasks are that they are doing and how that money is being expended. Incidentally, if I want to do by type as well, I can bunch the brickies together so you can see they've now formed a group. So you've got a total cost of 2,132 for the brickwork, decorator and so on. So each trade has got a separate cost associated with it. Lots of other reports, cost cash flows in actual physical information, and materials used. Let's have a look at that. Here's a listing of all the materials with the retail price. Obviously in my system I've not got discount. I don't imagine anybody's paying £4.54 for cement. In your system the price will actually be discounted and you can see the number of bags of cement and the overall cost that we need. If you scroll down here we'll find the bricks, I guess. Facing bricks, there we are. There's those 70 P bricks, 1,573. So the overall budget is £1,156. So a quotation inquiry, a very similar item here, but this time it's separated by product type. So you can filter these and send them to particular merchants. So if you're buying your heavy side from a particular supplier, you can just filter those out and send that information to your supplier to get the best price. Incidentally, with the software you also get what we call a project manager, which allows you to merge multiple jobs together. So if you've got, say, 10 extensions running, you can actually group all that information together and say, here we are, Mr. Merchant, I've won these 10 jobs. Can you give me your best price for blocks or timber or skirting boards or whatever? Because the opportunity will be much better, and that will allow you to get a better price for it. Okay, moving swiftly on, let's have a quick look at the quotations. So for most people will give a quote to their customer phase by phase, and the software will automatically do that for you. Now you can prepare the quote with as much or as little information as you like. Now there are two sort of favorites, if you like. The first one is to describe the materials in each phase, to perhaps provide a phase total, to possibly put a small picture in each phase, to build in the price including inflation. And why wouldn't you do that? Because otherwise you're just throwing money away. You can also use what we call customer friendly descriptions. And what they mean, if you look closely at that information there, is that it gives them an abbreviated description. So in this case we've reduced to quite a complex description of an engineering brick to an engineering brick. That means you've got more flexibility with the actual products you provide. If you've said I'm going to supply a thermalite block and it turns out you can't get them, but a Celcon is just the same strength and performance, you don't want the client to say, oh, I thought I was going to get that. So by using the customer friendly descriptions, it gives you a little bit more leeway with the actual products. You can also put the actual order quantity in if you want. Now many builders say, oh no, I don't want to do that. That's far too much information. I never give my clients that. What some people do is they will give a detailed quote, or they'll provide a detailed quote when they go and visit the customer with it and say, here we are, here's the job, this is what I've estimated, and that will show them absolutely everything that you've put into the estimate. But then if you're unable to sign the job on the night, then you say, okay, I've got an abbreviated quote here for you, and I'll leave that with you. Any questions, come back to me. So this means that you can demonstrate to the client that you have done a full quotation, but you haven't, if you like, given them the crown jewels with everything scheduled so they can hawk that around to other suppliers, which is always a legitimate fear. So lots of ways of winning work. I would suggest you always go and visit the client with the price. Don't email it to them. You know, it's very important. People buy from people. Do that and you'll see your success rates rise. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to press print, set the rate of VAT, and the software will automatically generate the quote. In response to your question, Colin, no, the 12K has not got the profit or the markup at the moment. You're actually going to see that in the quote. So if I scroll down here now, you can see it's obviously picked up the customer's name and address. There's an opening letter that is totally configurable by yourselves. In fact, you can have multiple letters in the software and just pick the one that suits the type of customer. It may be a very informal letter. It may be a formal letter to an architect or you know, a business. You can change all those and save them. You don't have to have this at the bottom advertising our software. You can obviously put your own footers. The software allows you to either embed your own logo. You can simply embed it into the software, or you can print it on headed paper. And then as we drill further down into the quote, you can then see it starts to merge the actual estimating data with the costs. So here you can see the foundations. There's an opening paragraph here, which is totally configurable by yourself. You can set that up so that every time you do an estimate, your preferred words come in there. For argument's sake, I was chatting to somebody the other day, they were suggesting that they would like to say if the foundations are greater than 900 millimeters below ground, the extra cost will be X £100 per cubic meter. You may as well tell the client up front so that if the worst does happen, it's not a surprise. Further down, you can now see that it's describing each of the elements, and because I've said yes, I want to put quantities in, it's pulling in the estimated quantities without the wastage factor in here. So if the client starts counting bricks on the job, he's not going to say, "Hoi, I thought I was going to get 1,500 bricks," and because some of them are obviously being wasted, which is, you know, we all know it's part of the building game. Waste is a fact of life. As I scroll further down, you can then see that it's done the oversight and slabbing, brought in the MOT, the sand blinding, the concrete for the slab, DPM, the perimeter insulation's gone in there. If we look at the Brickwork Shell, moving across the screen, you can see there's a general description about how to construct the walls, and then it actually brings in all the items. You can see it's brought in the IG cavity tray there. Because we've done a length of abutment, it's automatically assuming a cavity tray at this stage. If it transpires, you think, well, no, I don't usually cut in a cavity tray, I would just flash it in. You can go back into the estimate and remove that item, and that will then obviously be removed from the spec. Here you can see those facing bricks that we chose. So it's automatically brought in the 70p bricks and reported, as we saw before, that this 1,537. Because we've used a full description, you can see the Celcon blocks are there. So everything is described line by line. You can see that we're in the Brickwork Shell, and it started to pull in other information: the vertical damp, the combination lintel over the patio door, the dummy frame, the cavity closers. Same for the windows. All the roof structure is scheduled there, all of the tiling, the plastering system, and you can see that it's obviously plastering the roof itself, the walls, the plastering to the reveals. That's all picked up as well. Moving on to joinery second fix, skirting boards, the patio door itself has been put in as a second fix item. Now some people may say, well, I know I always first fix it and plaster up to it. Depends exactly how you want to do it. It's totally within your control. Internal decoration will then obviously paint all of the different surfaces. And so it goes on. And then finally, you've got the acceptance of the estimate or the variation. So answering your question, you can see, Mark, that, oh sorry, not Mark, Colin, that the profit and inflation has been added to that. So total job so far is just under 21,000. Now clearly that hasn't got any radiators in, it hasn't got the electrics, there's no drainage in there. You know, if we'd spent another 10 or 15 minutes doing that, if that, it would obviously you know, worked all that out for you. So I hope you can see that it's giving a, you know, a fully detailed quote. And bear in mind that all this information has really sort of cascaded straight off the back of having input 20 or 30 dimensions into the dialogues. One or two other questions have come in here. Can we upload a PDF drawing instead of AutoCAD? Well, that question really relates to tracing in of the drawings into Plans Express. The answer is yes, you can. If you're using Plans Express as your input, yes, you can trace over a PDF, a JPEG, an AutoCAD file, any DWG. Most common file formats can be imported. Another question here about floor laminate. I'm not sure whether we've got a laminate workbook in the software, but you'll be able to create one in about 3 minutes and then save it for use. If I go back into Estimator, I'll just double check. I have a feeling we've actually got a training exercise on laminate floors. You'll forgive me if I can't remember every calculator that we've got. No, we haven't got a laminate floor estimator in it. But as I say, all you would do, you can either use what we call the area-based estimate tool, which allows you to say, okay, I've got 15 square meters of laminate, and then you then pick the price of the laminate from the price book. If it's not in there because it's a specialist product, you add the price for the laminate in there. You may have got an underlay, and then you may have so much cost per square meter, which you allow, and the edging strips and what have you again. So the whole thing can be created in a matter of minutes, and then you can save that for use in the future. We've got carpeting, but not laminate, I think. If I go into the CAD system, we've got floor tiling and commercial carpeting, but we haven't got laminate at the moment, but very easy to create. So going back to your question earlier, can I import PDFs and so on? Yes, PDFs or AutoCAD drawings can be brought in here, and then you simply trace over that drawing and it automatically captures all the information. Just going to see if we've got any other questions that have come in. No, I think that's covered them all. So I hope that's given you a brief flavor of what's going on. I hope I've answered your question, Colin. I see you've put your hand up. Sorry if I didn't see that earlier. Let's see if there's any other messages on the system. Doesn't look as though there is. So are there any other questions that you guys have got? I'm happy to answer them individually. I'm sure most of the questions will be rolling around everybody else's head as well. So it's always good to get those off the floor. Thanks for a great demo. When can we meet? That's good, Colin. Whenever you like. Where do you live? Gene. Well, we have got some demos coming up there before long. So if you have a chat with whoever you're dealing with, in fact, if you'd let me know who you're dealing with, Colin, I'll tell them to let you know when we're over that way again. Yes, it's a good idea, Chris, about having laminate floors in there. It's just one of those things that probably hasn't been asked of us enough for us to say, okay, let's do it. But I will certainly make a note of it. As I say, funnily enough, I think we've actually got one that we use for training purposes, but we haven't embedded it in the software. Okay, any more questions? If not, I think I'm going to wrap up. You know, please feel free to call the sales team tomorrow, ask them any questions that occur overnight, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks very much indeed. Have a good evening.